Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of Kerbin Advanced Rocketry. I've set up everything I'm planning on doing today already. I'm planning on sending two probes out, one to Joule and one to Duna. I set it up so that it's only about, I think about an hour away from the burn for the first probe. Yeah, we're gonna send the first probe to, yep, and the Joule probe. And let's go ahead and set that up and go ahead and do that burn, and then I'm going to set up a secondary burn to fine-tune the close approach to Joule, and then I'll go back and then we'll fast forward to the Duna burn, which is alrighty. 1 hour 55 minutes. Let's go ahead and execute that burn. There's no need to waste time. I've been waiting a while for this launch window. Joule is one of my favorite Joule is one of my favorite places to go to because it has so many moons and so many things to discover, and I think has the most science that you can gather from any one location, because once you get out to Joule, if you can get around to a few of the other moons, then you can just reap so many science rewards just from flybys, just from quick flybys, So we're going to try to get out here and get out to Joule and get some science. I want to go ahead and unlock the rest of my tech tree. I have a lot more. I'm missing a lot of pieces that I need to really make my space program go forward, like the truss section pieces, so I can add the truss section and the larger docking port, so I can expand on my station, which is what I really want to do, because I plan on eventually using the station that I have in orbit over Kerbin as a main body section of my interplanetary craft. So I just want to, that way I want to launch up another research bay and another orbital science bay. I already have those two connected together, so I can just connect them to a larger truss section pieces. Then I can launch up a larger engine section piece like I normally use to get it out to the other planets, but that's a little bit farther down in my space program. So today we're basically going to be doing the burns to Joule. We'll be doing the burns to Joule, and then after that we have another, let me see, 10 days before our window opens up for the Duna probe. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and set up out here on the descending node. We'll set up another maneuver node to get us closer into Joule here, which is, it's not going to tell us. Let me go down and see. It might tell us 19 days, so that'll still leave us plenty of time to do the other launch window that's going out to Duna. We'll do both of those today, and then I'll probably go back and see what little science I can get from leaving the sphere of influence of Kerbin. Maybe a little science there. I only need about, I think about 40 more science, and I can unlock another level in the tech tree, which has some of the components that I need. So shouldn't take long here. Man, I remember when I first started playing this game and I saw the map for the first time, and I launched my Mercury type craft with my first Kerbal on it, probably about the first 30 or 40 minutes. I went and watched a Scott Manley video, and oh, okay, you turn over at 10,000 and then you go. Okay, and I thought, okay, well, I made it into orbit. And then when I made it into orbit for the first time, it was all wonky, elliptical orbit. So I came out to the map screen and I scrolled out, and I was like, oh my God, how in the hell am I ever going to get to these other planets? I just couldn't imagine, getting to these other planets when I first started playing this game, because it was so difficult, not knowing how the game actually works, how to just basically get into orbit. Just getting into orbit when you first try it for that first few times is just so daunting. You just like, oh my god, this is really like super difficult. Excuse me. Excuse me. But I was so stunned. I was like, man, I'm never gonna reach these other planets. And I'd go out and I'd look at them and be like, oh man, there's a moon. And then, it just got me more excited. I'd go back and watch more YouTube videos and be like, oh man, I can't wait to try to get out here like these guys. And I see these guys making these crazy ships, trying to send them out to Jewel and land them on Lathe and all this crazy stuff. And then, what really, I guess, messed me up with the game at first with the YouTube videos was that when I first started playing, everybody was on this kick where, oh, we don't do mods. Nobody does mods. We're better than everybody because we only play stock and we don't use MechJeb and we don't do this and we don't do that. And I guess it's all fine, but I tried to play the game for I'd say about the first month, maybe a month and a half without any mods, just stock. And to me, it just became so boring. Not because you can't achieve anything with the stock parts, which you can, but just sitting here for 10 or sometimes 12, 15 hours like I used to do when I first started playing this game, basically, looking at the same parts, just looking at the same parts over and over, the same engines, the same orange fuel tank. It just got really, really tedious, and then I start, getting mad because I was like, I'd make a rocket and put more and more fuel on it. I'd fly up there, try to dock with it, and it'd take 2 hours to try to, master just docking with the thing. And then, you finally get it docked with it and you burn and you get halfway to your target and you run out of fuel because there's no way in the game to actually tell how much delta V that you have. Not with the stock game. You have to have a mod to view your delta V, which I do not understand. Yeah, it makes this game like 100 times harder, than it should be when you first start playing this game, because basically you're just stuck. You're just stuck, and you basically don't know what's going on, how to get anywhere. And then when you do figure out how to actually get somewhere, you always run out of fuel because you can't gauge how much fuel you actually have, how much delta V you actually have. So it's a lot of guys out there, oh, I only play stock and I only do this and I don't do that, and a lot of these guys, I watch their series is for like quite a few episodes, 30, 40, 50, 60, sometimes even more episodes of their series with them just playing with stock parts, going places and doing stuff and not using MechJeb and just using, basically flying the rocket themselves, which is all fine and dandy. But I just wanted my space program to be more I just wanted it to be more like a real space program would be. We're not just going to guesstimate how much fuel we're going to need to get somewhere. We're going to actually know exactly how much we need from sending probes out there and, doing missions and getting things started, right? So, I watched all these YouTube series for so long, for so long I watched them and I was like, man, this is not what I want to watch. I want to see people play a little more serious, not just building these super 500 part crafts with one Kerbal on it and a little landing engine, and basically you're going to try to take this way out to Jewel with no food, one battery on the whole pod and one solar panel. You're just basically just going to go out there and hope for the best. But I just wanted my space program to be more realistic somehow, and you need mods to do that. You really do. You need mods to make this game more realistic. Attack life support, the other science mod parts. So, whoa. Yeah, so, oh yeah, you did the flip around where it does the. Yeah, so basically, that's where this series came from. I wanted to do something different on YouTube with KSP than I saw a lot of other people doing. I wanted my episodes to be like an actual NASA mission. Each episode being an actual NASA mission where we try to achieve something, and then we just don't have to wait for years like NASA has to actually get these things done. So let's go ahead here and stage. this engine and go ahead and finish this burn. Yeah, so as you can see, we have plenty of fuel. This engine is really weak, but we have plenty of fuel to be able to get out to where we're trying to go, so I'm not going to worry about it. It's going to be plenty of fuel. We're going to get out there. We're going to try to visit a couple of the moons. We're going to do a couple aero breaks around maybe Lathe and maybe Joule to get into orbit. We're going to just do a lot of different things, you know, try to run a real space program here. So basically this craft has basically just some basic science scanning utilities. Whatever science parts that I had available, I've thrown on here. So we're going to take this out to Joule and hopefully get some science with it. So let's go out here and see what we're looking like on the burn. Should be almost perfect. Yep, we're almost done. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up another burn out here to you know, get a little bit closer, so it'll be a lot easier on me when I get out there to get into orbit, or set up my my burn that I'm trying to do, the aero break around Joule, which is going to be pretty cool. I've done quite a few of those. Joule is one of my favorite places to go to, so I've been here probably more than any other place in the game other than Duna. Probably Duna and Joule are my favorite places to go to. Alright, so we're going to be pretty high, so we're definitely going to set up another maneuver node. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to find the fine-tune closest approach. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my closest approach to about 200 kilometers up from Joule, which is, you know, close enough to actually, you know, do a correction burn once we get into the sphere of influence to do a nice aero break. So let's go ahead and create that. And that's going to be 77 days, and it's only 115 meters per second. So what we're going to do is go ahead and go in here. We don't need that alarm, but we're going to add our alarm for that 77 days from now. It'll be a while. I'm going to run other missions, I'm going to run other missions to other places and other stuff that I got going on before we come back to this, because I don't want to just be running, you know, the okay. That is the second time it's just randomly zoomed out like that. Well, let's see if it does it again. Alright, there we go, a flyby of the moon. And we should be coming up to, let's go ahead and check if we've left. And we actually have. So let's go ahead and go back and try to grab a little science while we're out here. Toggle collectors. Let's go ahead and open up these other solar panels if I want to transmit some data. Collect solar particle data. And we have no choice. We're going to have to transmit that. I don't plan on bringing this probe back. I might, but I'm not going to plan that far ahead. Toggle this, yes. And let's go ahead and save some of this other stuff for alright, let's go ahead and transmit that. That's going to give me about 13 science, which will bring me a little bit closer to unlocking my next level. Alright, so we basically have our time set up, our burn, 77 days with the Joule probe, and we'll come back to that when that time comes up. Let's go back here. No, I wanted to circle. No, I don't want to do Skylab. Let's focus on Kerbin. And I believe we have 10 days left here for this burn, which I guess I could focus on. You know what? We can actually fast forward here and get that day down. Alright, let's close that. We don't need that alarm anymore. We're going to wait for this one in 2 days. Let's go ahead and speed that up. I made sure to have plenty of food and supplies on my stations and the few ships that I do have in orbit with Kerbals on it. So I made sure to get that done. Let's go ahead and zoom down. I believe I set this up for a few minutes before the actual burn, so we can actually burn right down to this last little bit here. Alright, we're down. Let's go ahead and switch to this one and go ahead and get the Duna burn out of the way. Minutes. Let's go ahead and execute that burn. Activate the engine. This is I believe some kind of mapping tool. So we have plenty of delta V. I don't need that. And we're not going to need the alarm clock now that we're set for our burn. Yeah, the only reason why I'm sending out these probes like this is because the actual scanning device that's inside this is the carbonite scanning device. This thing you see here spinning around, it actually you know, makes the game actually slow down. It actually makes it run a little bit slower, like half a second slower, just because you have it active. So I don't like putting this on all of my ships. So basically what I'm doing is all the places I plan on visiting, I'm sending out these single probes with just that utility on it and a little science together just for sending it out there, so I can actually scan the planets where I want to be able to land and get carbonite, or the altitudes where I can actually mine it in space. So I'm basically going to try to achieve using these small probes to map out my missions for later on, so that I want to carry these components on my ship and actually slow down my game, because right now I can actually load up one of my really large ships and get it up to orbit and it'll just be in the green, and the game runs really smooth, a lot smoother than it did before. So I'm real happy about that. But I just want to get that out the way. You know, the mods aren't perfect, but you know, you just have to deal with what you can deal with. If you're trying to achieve something in KSP, I mean, you just have to deal with it. So we're going to take this burn here, get it over with. I probably could actually fast forward. I believe I can now. No, it's not going to let me. Yep, so we'll get this burn done, and then I'll probably take you guys back. And I wanted to do a little part at the end of this episode today, you know, because I see a lot of guys, they build rockets and they send them off. I watch this other guy that posts videos on YouTube. He's called the Fifth Horseman. So he has a series where he's doing people send in rockets to, you know, they basically send in rockets to him, and he flies the rockets to do missions, which is all cool. And I really like his series. And but a lot of the rockets that I see people send in, they're just like over built, you know, they're just over engineered. You know, you really don't need that much stuff. You know, I know y'all seen a few of my launches, and some of my rockets are just minimalist, like type rockets. I mean, where you're really going to want your Delta V to be at is in this final stage. You know, you don't want to put 6,000 Delta V in your launch stage, because that's basically just wasting it. You're trying to launch up one orange tank, but you're using 6 or 7 or sometimes 8 times the amount of fuel just to get that one tank in orbit, which isn't really necessary. You had a better rocket design, rather, than using the fuel lines and asparagus staging like a lot of guys talk about, is really the best way to go. So I want to try to do a quick little small build, you know, with using mods and stuff like that on rockets. You know, you can always just take out the mod parts that I use, like the TAC life support and some of the other mods that I put in, but basically you can build some pretty nice rockets if you know the amount of Delta V that you have in your rocket, which makes it a lot easier to build. And I know a lot of guys say, "Oh, I don't need MechJeb, I don't need a Kerbal Engineer to build my rockets. I can just build a rocket." Well, yeah, but you know, a lot of the rockets that you're building are designs that were came out by guys that played the game 2 years ago. You know, nobody's crazy. I mean, I watched those videos too, and a lot of these guys figured out by just building these certain types of designs that you would have enough delta V to get here, get there, get back, whatever. So, and they still play the game that way. They call it the stock way. I only play stock, which is all good. But you know, I mean, I just don't like to guess. NASA, I don't think they would guess at how much delta V they would need to get to the moon, or guess how much they would need, so they would actually know. So I understand this is just a game and everybody wants to play it their own way, which is fine, you know, but I want to try to show people that there's a different way you can play it. You don't have to feel like using MechJeb or Kerbal Engineer is cheating, or because the simple fact is that if you want to sit here and do math in your head and calculate those fuel tanks and the ISP, and you want to run all those numbers down in your head, hey, go right ahead, my friend. It's just that I would rather spend my time enjoying the actual game, not doing math problems on how many fuel tanks I need, or you know, this engine, and factoring in the amount of fuel and the lift and the no. I don't want to do that. That's not the fun part of this game. The fun part for me is building the actual rockets and launching them and getting them in orbit and achieving the goals I'm trying to achieve. So we basically, I don't see an encounter. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a fine tune here, the same what we did for Jewel, and we're going to set this one up a little lower. We want to get closer, so let's set this one for 50 50. Well, yeah. And let's do 100. Let's do 100 just in case. I can always change it. Create that. Oh, that's right. I don't. Oh, I might actually have a encounter. No, I actually don't. So let's go ahead and set this up. No, let's not do 200. I said 100. Alright, let's create this. And it's only 19. See that's 19.0 meters per second out here. So that's going to be a pretty easy burn, and it's going to bring us right in to look at that 105, right above where we want to be, because when I get into the sphere of influence, I'll drop it down to about 16, between 16 and 20, I believe, and maybe do an arrow break. I may not do an arrow break because I want to try to maybe get a encounter with Ike, so we'll see when we get out there. But this burn is actually only 25 days away, so I'm going to go back now, and we'll set up a yeah, basically we'll set up a alarm clock here for this. Let's add the alarm for this window. Let's add that and close that down. We don't need that. And then we'll go back to I want to try to run through and just build a small rocket, or show you one of my rockets that I built that maybe lifted up my station. I'll show y'all my rocket that I used to lift up my station, which is basically my my version of a heavy lifter. So I'll just show you guys my lifter, so you want to sit here and watch me actually build a rocket, because I'm kind of a stickler when building my rockets. I have a certain way that I actually build a rocket, so it goes a lot quicker for me now, but then I'll spend a lot of time deciding what I'm going to use it for, what science I want to put on there. So let's go ahead and load up, where is that? No, Skylab core. Let's see if this is the main piece, or did I actually have the whole ship built. I might have to just throw a lifter together here. Oh no, here we go. We're good. We're good. So as you can see, I'm using KW rocketry and the original parts, the mainsail, because this is what I have unlocked right now, and it's the most efficient way. And basically this here is what I use to lift my station up. These are the fairings, the new textured fairings for procedural fairings. I haven't unlocked the larger fairing bases yet. That's why you see this big dip out here, because the station is actually so wide. I had to secure it with these to keep it from wobbling around. This stage here is just basically, you can basically take off this bottom stage here and this is the lift stage, this piece here. You basically can take this off here, and this is the entire lift stage. This is a lift stage that you can use, that I use basically this exact same design to lift any amount of weight into orbit. So basically this design is the design I use. I just put larger tanks and larger engines when I want to lift heavier objects. And then I usually have a middle stage that'll finish off the orbit. This will fall back and be recovered. This entire stage can be recovered because it's quite expensive. So let's put this back on here so you can see how it works. Alright, what we have here is we're going to have 2 large tanks. Basic design. You can always add like a smaller mid-sized tank in between if you want to get a little bit more out of it. Let's look at the Delta V here. What you have here, you have 3 stages before you actually get to the final stage. This is this stage here, this stage here, just to finish off getting it into orbit. But these are the 3 stages that are going to get me to orbit. So you need 4,100 meters per second to get into orbit with a 1.2 at least minimum TWR to get anything off orbit. It doesn't matter what the weight is, just as long as it equals up 4,100 meters per second, you'll make it to orbit. In just make sure you have that amount. And with this stage, I usually use 2 tanks, but sometimes I add a smaller mid-sized tank when I want to get a little bit more fuel out of the like one of these. I'll use one of these in the middle of these 2 to get a little bit more Delta V when I need it. But then I always put on a large engine in the middle. Usually I use a KW Rocketry 4 engine cluster with 4 engines on it because it's really powerful. And then I basically use 2 side tanks with symmetry set to 2, because you don't want to do 4 because you want these to burn off independently. Basically you want to start, because the way the rockets launch now, it's going to actually launch with this being the way it's facing and the right facing way on the launch pad. So basically you want these 2 engines here, these 2 tanks and engines, to fall off first. That way you won't have to worry about rotating the rocket to keep these tanks from hitting into the middle tank, because these 2 tanks will get this rocket up to just before 10,000 meters. So you want to worry about having to do your turn, and these will still be on there. They'll actually burn out before that and drop off. And then after these drop off, you'll actually do your gravity turn where these will be on the side, so they won't. You want to worry about them hitting the center stack. And then what you want to do is you want to. I've been having problems. There's a reason why I have these parachutes on the bottom. I don't like using the Separatrons because they're just extra pieces, and a lot of times you don't need them. But ever since you have to try to recover your components instead of just ditching them, you know, putting parachutes on the top will actually pull. As soon as it seems like the parachute will automatically open and start dragging the tank down as soon as it's activated. It won't wait for the actual height to, you know, the altitude to open up, so it'll yank the tank down, and sometimes it'll smash into the rocket. So what I did to solve that problem was put the parachutes on the bottom of the rocket, so that when this does break away, it will basically pull the rocket straight down and away from the tanks. It'll pull it straight down and away from the tanks, and both of these are set up like this. Now you want to set up your first stage to fall off on this side, the front and the back, from, you know, viewing it this way. And you want to run your fuel lines from here to the second tank, the side tank. Now that means that all these engines, all 5 of these engines, are going to be drawing fuel from these outside tanks here. And once they, you know, it's going to burn through this pretty quick. As you can see, it has a very high TWR, but it only has 800 meters per second. So it's going to burn through this pretty quick. But you're gonna basically get your speed up to where you want it to be. Then these will fall off, and then these 3 engines will be burning from these 2 tanks on this side. And this will get you pretty far. This will basically get you to about, I believe, about 30, about 30, you know, kilometers, 34, somewhere around there. It'll get you up to there. Then these will fall off, and then you'll basically have this entire 2 tanks with the mainsail to basically finish getting you the rest of the way up into orbit. You'll fall short about, I'll usually set it up to fall short about within 150 to 300 meters per second shortfall on how much Delta V, because I don't want to take this whole stage into orbit, so I want to cover all this. So I want this to actually run out right before we get into orbit, so I only have to use this, maybe half of this Delta V, to actually get it into orbit, and then I can use the rest to move it to a higher orbit or do what I want to do with it, or maybe set it up for something else. So that's just my basic lift system, and this system works really well. You can change it a little bit, and there's a reason why I have the tanks a little bit lower than the other ones, because uh, having them up closer where all these engines are a lot closer makes it more unstable, and it's a more of a chance that these tanks could actually hit the engine when they fall away, or things can go wrong. That's why I have it a little farther down, so that there's already half of the tank away before when it falls, it just falls away. I don't want it hitting my main stack in the center. But I've had a lot of I've basically been using this lift system for about more 7 or 8 months. 7 or 8 months. Ever since I figured out how to make this lift system and I used it for heavy lifting, I've just used all my rockets. The only rockets I don't build like this are probes and small craft that I can launch up with just this center stack deal, which y'all seen me launch before, where I just have one engine and one stack, and then basically I can get all the way into orbit with just this center stack and one engine. So but other than that, lifting heavy objects and mission pieces, stuff like that, I always use this. I basically have to use a huge lift system, this same design with the 4 engine cluster, huge amount of thrust, all on all these engines to lift up the actual stage that I use for my engine section, for my main ships that I use to send out to other places. But we're not gonna get to that today. So hope you guys enjoyed the walkthrough on the little build design, and try it out. You never know. You might like it. It might work good for you. It might solve a lot of your problems. And I'll see you guys next time.